The day started like any other, except it wasn't. I had just returned from a grueling business trip, exhausted but triumphant, clutching a signed multi-million-dollar contract that would have made Derek beam with pride. If he were still capable of being proud of me. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I pushed open the heavy oak door, my lips curved into an eager smile. The house smelled faintly of expensive candles, vanilla and sandalwood. My favorites and soft jazz played through the speakers, creating what should have been the perfect welcome home. But nothing could prepare me for what awaited inside. There they were, Derek, my husband of 7 years, his bare chest glistening under the dim blue lights of our jacuzzi. Flanking him were Sophia and Riley, my two best friends since college, the same women who had helped me pick out that very jacuzzi 6 months ago as an anniversary gift to celebrate our friendship. Except now, they weren't celebrating anything. They lounged in the bubbling water like royalty, wearing pieces of jewelry I recognized instantly because they belonged to me. Not costume trinkets or cheap knockoffs, but heirlooms passed down from my grandmother. Gifts from family milestones meant to symbolize love, trust, and loyalty. And there they sat, sipping champagne from crystal flutes, laughing as though this betrayal was some twisted game they'd orchestrated behind my back. For a moment, time stopped. The bottle of Dom Perignon I'd brought back as a surprise slipped from my numb fingers, shattering against the imported Italian marble floor. Sound so sharp it echoed through the cavernous space like the crash of my entire world. My heart pounded in my ears, each beat reverberating like a drum roll, leading up to the crescendo devastation. "Oh, ally," Sophia drawled, her voice dripping with mockery, raising her champagne flute high as though she were toasting my humiliation. "We thought you'd be stuck at work late tonight." She smirked, leaning back casually, completely unbothered by the chaos she'd unleashed. Riley scrambled to cover herself with a towel, mascara streaking down her face as tears began to form. But even in her panic, she couldn't hide the diamond necklace around her neck, the one I'd given Sophia on her last birthday. It gleamed mockingly under the soft light, a cruel reminder of how easily they'd discarded decades of friendship for fleeting pleasure. Every detail screamed betrayal, the bubbles rising lazily in the jacuzzi, the scattered rose petals floating on its surface, the scent of citrus-scented bath oil mingling with the perfume Derek always claimed smelled better on Sophia than it ever did on me. Even the playlist, my favorite songs, felt like a slap in the face, as though they'd deliberately chosen everything intimate and personal to twist it into something vile. Derek stood abruptly, water cascading off his body as he reached for a towel. His face went pale when he saw me standing there, frozen like a statue. "Babe," he stammered, taking a hesitant step toward me. You're home early." His words hung in the air, hollow and meaningless, like dust motes caught in sunlight. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. Instead, he looked guilty, panicked, and oddly resigned, as though he'd known this moment would come, but hoped it wouldn't happen today. I wanted to scream, to hurl something at them, to demand answers, but all I could do was stand there, paralyzed by disbelief. "How long?" The question burned in my throat, choking me. "Weeks? Months? Years?" Their eyes darted between each other, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. "Years, then." The realization hit me like a freight train, knocking the wind out of me. This wasn't a spontaneous mistake. It was calculated, deliberate, and deeply rooted in deceit. They hadn't just crossed a line, they had obliterated it, leaving nothing but ash in their wake. The world tilted on its axis as I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling the weight of betrayal crush my chest. The air was thick with the scent of vanilla candles, the same ones I'd meticulously chosen to create a romantic. Ambience for Derek and soft jazz played in the background, mocking me with its These were supposed to be symbols of love, of home, but now they reeked of deceit. Every detail around me felt like a cruel joke orchestrated by fate itself. My mind raced back to all the nights Derek had claimed he was working late or traveling for business trips that never seemed to end. How many times had Sophia and Riley convinced me it was perfectly fine, even healthy, for him to unwind with them after stressful days? Let him relax, ally, Sophia would say with her trademark reassuring smile. You can't expect him to handle everything alone. And I believed them every single lie. My voice tore through the silence like shards of glass. How long? I demanded, my words trembling with rage and disbelief. How long have you been betraying me? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, demanding an answer that would shatter whatever remained of my dignity. Sophia's lips curled into a cold smirk, her eyes glinting with malice. Long enough to know you're not his only choice, she replied, her tone dripping with venom. Her words hit me like a freight train, knocking the breath from my lungs. Not his only choice. The phrase echoed in my mind, each repetition carving deeper wounds into my already broken heart. Riley, who moments ago had tried to shield herself with a towel, now crumbled under the weight of guilt. Tears streamed down her face, mascara streaking her cheeks like war paint. I'm so sorry, ally, she sobbed, reaching out toward me as if expecting forgiveness. But her apology wasn't repentance, it was salt in the wound. Years of betrayal stretched before me like a dark abyss, swallowing every memory we'd shared. I remembered the countless dinners where Riley insisted I leave early because Derek needed time to decompress. I recalled Sophia casually mentioning how Derek looked tired during their spa days together. They weren't just lies, they were calculated manipulations designed to gaslight me into submission. The room spun as realization dawned. This wasn't just infidelity. It was psychological warfare waged against me by the people I trusted most. Each stolen glance, each whispered conversation behind my back, each fabricated excuse, they had all been pieces of a puzzle I refused to see until now. My legs threatened to give way, but anger kept me upright. You think saying sorry makes this okay? I spat at Riley, my voice raw with fury. After everything, you dare cry in front of me? Sophia leaned back, unfazed, sipping her champagne as though she were watching a play unfold. Oh, Allison, she said mockingly, you act like you didn't suspect anything. Her audacity ignited something primal within me, a fire fueled by years of humiliation and self-doubt. For the first time, I saw them clearly, not as friends or lovers, but as predators feasting on my vulnerability. The night stretched endlessly as I sat cross-legged on the cold bathroom floor, Derek's phone glowing like a beacon of betrayal in my trembling hands. It wasn't enough to know they had laughed at me behind my back. I needed proof. Something tangible to anchor the chaos swirling inside me. And then I found it. A video buried deep within their shared chat, timestamped 6 months ago. My breath hitched as I pressed play. There they were, Derek lounging arrogantly in an oversized chair, Sophia perched on his lap with that smug grin she thought made her untouchable, and Riley giggling like a child who'd just gotten away with stealing cookies. The camera panned to me across the room, oblivious, sipping champagne while chatting with a potential client for Derek's firm. The caption burned into my retinas, sweet thing, so pitiful. My vision blurred with tears, but anger quickly replaced despair. They didn't just betray me, they mocked me, turned my kindness into a punchline for their twisted amusement. That's when I realized this went beyond personal vendettas. It was systemic, calculated, and far more sinister than I could have imagined. I couldn't fight them alone, not against years of deceit woven so intricately. I needed weapons sharper than emotions, facts, evidence, and leverage. By dawn, I had hired Diana, former FBI agent known for dismantling corporate empires, and assembled a team of forensic accountants and private investigators. Their mandate was simple: dig until there's nothing left to unearth. What we discovered over the next 72 hours felt like stepping into a nightmare deeper than even I had anticipated. Derek hadn't merely squandered our marriage vows. He pillaged the trust fund my grandparents established 3 generations ago. Millions earmarked for charitable foundations and future investments were funneled into dubious offshore accounts tied to illegal ventures. Worse still, hidden beneath layers of encrypted files, I uncovered a secret slush fund labeled Phase 2, his escape plan, meticulously detailed down to fake identities and prepaid properties scattered across Europe. Sophia and Riley weren't passive participants either. They had exploited their proximity to me, not just emotionally but financially, to manipulate business deals through connections I'd introduced them to. Emails revealed how Sophia orchestrated meetings between Derek and wealthy investors' wives during gala events where I served as polite window dressing. Meanwhile, Riley falsified invoices, charging clients exorbitant fees for counterfeit European imports while pocketing the profits herself. Together, they had built a web of corruption so dense it seemed impossible to unravel. But now, armed with undeniable evidence, I saw it clearly. They weren't untouchable. They were vulnerable. As I reviewed the findings spread across my dining table bank statements, forged documents, incriminating photos, I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Each piece of evidence became another brick in the fortress I was building around myself, ensuring no one could ever hurt me again. My voice steadied as I instructed Diane to prepare everything for public release. This wasn't just my battle, it was a reckoning for every lie they thought they could bury. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity that felt almost surreal. My war room, once just a dining table cluttered with files and laptops, was now a command center of justice. By 9 a.m., my lawyers had filed the necessary paperwork to remove Sophia and Riley from their positions as CEOs of their respective companies. It wasn't personal, it was business. Except it was personal because they had turned our friendship into a weapon against me. The evidence James compiled painted a damning picture. Sophia's fraudulent, all-natural products were laced with synthetic chemicals, while Riley's interior design firm had been duping clients by passing off cheap knockoffs as exclusive European imports. Their betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial, systemic, and calculated. By noon, Derek's career began to unravel. I sent an encrypted email to the sick, detailing his creative accounting practices at his law firm, how he funneled client funds into offshore accounts, tied to his escape plan. Within hours, his license was suspended pending investigation. He called me, his voice trembling with rage. "You think this will make you happy?" He spat, but I didn't respond. Happiness wasn't the goal anymore, it was accountability. Sophia's reaction came swiftly. She stormed into my office uninvited, her face flushed with fury. "How dare you?" she screamed, slamming her hands on my desk. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined everything." Her words dripped with venom, but her eyes betrayed fear, something I'd never seen in her before. When she realized yelling wouldn't work, she switched tactics. "Allison, please," she pleaded, her tone suddenly soft. "Think about what we meant to each other. Think about all those years." For a moment, I hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of disbelief that she still thought manipulation would work. But then came the call. Her shrill voice pierced through the phone line later that evening. "You'll regret this, ally. I'll destroy everything you've built." Each word was sharp, intended to cut deep. Yet, instead of anger, I felt calm and icy resolve that surprised even me. "Funny," I replied coolly. "I learned how to play this game from you." Riley, on the other hand, tried to run. News of her crime spread faster than she could pack her bags. She booked a last-minute flight to Europe, hoping to disappear under the radar. But I knew better than to let her slip away. Through my family's connections, I froze her bank accounts within hours. When airport security detained her for questioning, she called me, sobbing hysterically. "Please, Allison, I'll do anything. Just let me go." Her desperation was palpable, but so was my resolve. "Anything?" I asked quietly. "Then start by telling the truth about everything." As the days passed, the fallout became public spectacle. Headlines blared accusations of fraud, tax evasion, and consumer deception. Clients abandoned Sophia and Riley en masse, leaving their once thriving businesses in ruins. Meanwhile, Derek faced mounting legal fees and potential jail time. Watching them crumble wasn't satisfying, it was cathartic. They had underestimated me for years, treating me as nothing more than a pawn in their schemes. Now, they were learning what happened when the pawn became queen. The living room was silent, save for the faint crackle of the fire in the hearth. I stood by the fireplace, my posture rigid but controlled, as if every muscle in my body had been honed for this moment. On the coffee table in front of me lay 3 manila envelopes, each labeled in precise block letters, "This is the truth." The flames cast flickering shadows over them, making the words glow like an omen. Derek, Sophia, and Riley sat stiffly on the couch, their faces pale and eyes darting between the envelopes and me. They looked like cornered animals, desperate yet powerless. Derek finally broke the silence, his voice trembling with a mix of guilt and defiance. "Allison, let me explain." "Explain?" I cut him off sharply, my voice slicing through the air like a blade. "You used my trust to climb to the top, Derek. But now, you'll fall from the very heights you stole from me." My gaze locked onto his, unwavering and cold. For the first time, he flinched under my stare. The same man who once promised me forever now looked like a stranger. He lunged forward suddenly, his composure shattering. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing without me." His hands reached out, fingers clawing at empty air as though he could physically rip away my resolve. But before he could take another step, 2 security guards appeared silently from the adjoining room, gripping his arms with practiced efficiency. Derek struggled against their hold, his face contorted with rage. "One more move," I said icily, my tone devoid of emotion, "and you'll be facing assault charges on top of everything else. Do you really want to test how far your legal troubles can go?" Sophia, ever the opportunist, seized the moment to interject. Her voice dripped with venom as she leaned forward, attempting to intimidate me. "If you do this, Allison, you'll ruin not just us, you'll drag your entire family's reputation down with you. Is that what you want?" I turned to her slowly, letting the weight of her words hang in the air before responding. "My family taught me something important, Sophia," I said, my voice steady and biting. "Honor matters more than reputation. And right now, your actions have stripped you of both." Riley, who had been silent until now, buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "Please, ally, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "This isn't about intentions anymore," I snapped, my patience evaporating. "It's about consequences. Every choice you made led you here. Now you'll face them just like I did when I walked in on your little party." The room grew colder, the tension thick enough to choke on. Derek stopped struggling, his chest heaving as realization dawned on him. He wasn't dealing with the same Allison anymore. This version of me was unyielding, unforgiving, and utterly determined. "You wanted control," I continued, gesturing to the envelopes. "But all you've done is expose your own weaknesses. Open them. See exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes." 6 months had passed since that fateful day in the Jacuzzi, but the fallout from my calculated revenge, or justice, as I preferred to call it, was far from over. Derek's trial became national news, his meticulously crafted image of success crumbling under the weight of irrefutable evidence. The courtroom was packed on the day of sentencing, reporters scribbling furiously as the judge delivered his verdict: 57 years for financial fraud and embezzlement. Derek's face turned ashen as he was led away in handcuffs, his once charming smile replaced by a look of pure despair. "You'll regret this," he spat at me during a brief exchange outside the courthouse. But I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled faintly and replied, "Regret is for people who make mistakes. I haven't made one yet." Sophia's downfall was equally spectacular. Her company, once hailed as a wellness empire, collapsed under the scrutiny of federal investigators. It turned out her all-natural products were laced with dangerous synthetic chemicals, something she'd hidden behind clever marketing and falsified reports. As her assets were seized and her reputation destroyed, Sophia confronted me one last time before disappearing into obscurity. Standing in the lobby of what used to be her flagship store, now stripped bare by bankruptcy proceedings, she hurled a final insult. "I hope you're happy with your loneliness, Allison." Her voice trembled with bitterness, but I simply smiled. "Loneliness isn't so bad," I said coolly, "especially when you finally know who truly loves you." Riley's fate was perhaps the most tragic or poetic, depending on how you looked at it. Stripped of her interior design license after an investigation revealed her fraudulent practices, she checked herself into rehab after admitting to years of substance abuse and untreated mental health issues. A month later, she sent me a letter and apology scrawled in shaky handwriting, filled with promises to change. I placed it on my desk without reading past the first paragraph. Forgiveness felt like a bridge too far, even though part of me wanted to believe her remorse was genuine. The media circus surrounding their downfalls brought a strange sense of closure. Reporters hounded me for interviews, eager to paint me as either a victim or a villain. I declined them all, choosing instead to focus on rebuilding my life. My new penthouse overlooked the city where I'd endured both triumphs and betrayals, but now it symbolized something different: resilience. Malign often teased me about becoming untouchable, but I knew better. I wasn't invincible. I was just done letting others define my worth. As I stood on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Derek, Sophia, and Riley hadn't just stolen pieces of my life. They'd forced me to confront who I was and who I could become. Their punishments weren't about vengeance. They were about accountability. And while I still carried scars, I no longer let them define me. For the first time in years, I felt free, not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped losing. 6 months after the Jacuzzi incident, I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse, gazing down at the city that once symbolized betrayal but now represented rebirth. The autumn breeze carried a crispness that felt cleansing, as if nature itself was helping me shed the remnants of my past life. My old house, their house, was sold, its memories auctioned off like relics of a forgotten era. The proceeds went into establishing the Phoenix Foundation, a scholarship fund dedicated to supporting women who had survived psychological abuse. It wasn't just about giving back. It was about transforming pain into purpose. That evening, I attended the annual charity gala not as Derek's accessory this time, but as the guest of honor. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Yet all eyes were on me when I stepped onto the stage to accept an award for my contributions. Malayan, radiant in a deep emerald gown, gave me a thumbs up from her seat while discreetly wiping away tears. As the applause faded, a reporter approached me, microphone in hand. "Ms. Bennett," he began, his tone earnest, "do you feel victorious after everything you've been through?" I paused, letting the question linger before answering. "Victory implies there was something to win," I said calmly, meeting his gaze. "I didn't win anything. I simply stopped losing. The room fell silent, save for the soft clinking of glasses nearby. My words weren't meant to be poetic or dramatic, they were truth distilled. For years, I allowed others to define my worth, to dictate how much space I should occupy in my own life. But standing there, under the spotlight, I realized I had finally reclaimed every fragment of myself. After the interview, Malign joined me by the bar, her expression soft with pride. "You turned tragedy into opportunity," she murmured, handing me a glass of wine, the kind I liked, not the brand Derek used to insist on. "Mom and Dad would have been so proud of you." Her voice caught slightly on the last word, and for a moment we both thought of them. They had taught us resilience, integrity, and the importance of justice. Yet part of me wondered what they would think of the lengths I'd gone to achieve it. The scorched earth campaign, the public exposure, the unyielding pursuit of accountability. They might have been horrified, I admitted quietly, swirling the golden liquid in my glass. But maybe they'd understand why I did it. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about survival. About making sure no one else gets hurt the way I did. Malign shook her head firmly. "No, Allison. What you did was more than survive, you thrived. You took their cruelty and turned it into compassion. That's what makes you extraordinary." Her words stayed with me long after the gala ended. Later that night, alone on my penthouse balcony, I reflected on the journey that brought me here. 6 months ago, I was a woman broken, questioning whether she deserved love or loyalty. Now I was someone entirely different, stronger, sharper, more aware of my power. The scars remained, but they no longer controlled me. Looking out over the city lights, I whispered to the cool night air, "Thank you." Not to Derek, Sophia, or Riley, for they deserved none of my gratitude, but to the universe for forcing me to confront the depths of my strength. If not for their betrayal, I might never have discovered who I truly was. And for that, I owed them nothing but silence. As I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, the city sprawled beneath me like a tapestry of broken dreams and newfound beginnings. The lights flickered in the distance, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's struggle or triumph. But tonight they felt like reflections of my own journey, fragmented yet radiant with possibility. I thought about how much had changed since that fateful day 6 months ago when I discovered Derek. Sophia and Riley entangled in their web of deceit within my jacuzzi, the same one I donated to the community center after having it cleansed of every trace of their betrayal. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Just as I purged that object from my life, I'd also cleansed myself of their toxic influence. For years, I'd unknowingly handed over pieces of my power to them. To Derek, who convinced me his ambitions were ours. To Sophia and Riley, who exploited our friendship for personal gain. They didn't take it all at once. No, they did so gradually, feeding off my trust until I was left hollow. But what they failed to realize was this: you can't truly possess someone who willingly gives away their strength. It wasn't theirs to keep, it was mine to reclaim. And reclaim it I did, piece by excruciating piece. From dismantling their businesses to exposing their crimes, I took back everything they thought they'd stolen. The realization hit me like a thunderclap. They never truly owned me. Not my spirit, not my resolve, not even my love. Those things remained untouched because deep down, I hadn't let go of them. I'd simply misplaced them under layers of self-doubt and misplaced loyalty. Standing there, watching the world below move forward without pause, I whispered aloud, "They never really possessed me." I only needed to see it to find myself again. Malign's voice echoed in my mind, her words sharp but true. "Some people are just hollow inside, Allison. They take and never get filled up." She was right. Derek, Sophia, and Riley weren't villains, they were voids masquerading as humans, desperate to fill themselves with anything that glittered, whether it was money, status, or validation. And in their desperation, they tried to consume me whole. But they underestimated me. They mistook my kindness for weakness, my patience for passivity, and my silence for surrender. What they didn't count on was the quiet storm brewing beneath the surface, a storm that would eventually wash them away. I leaned against the railing, gazing down at the river of humanity flowing through the streets below. Each person seemed insignificant against the vastness of the city, yet together they formed something unstoppable. Just like me. Alone, I might have been fragile, but united with my truth, my purpose, and my resilience, I became unbreakable. In that moment, I understood something profound. Sometimes we need to fall apart completely before we can rebuild ourselves stronger than ever. With a soft sigh, I murmured into the night air, perhaps sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to discover our true strength. It wasn't bitterness in my voice, it was clarity. A kind of peace I hadn't known was possible. Because now, standing here with the wind brushing against my face and the city stretching endlessly before me, I knew one thing for certain. I was free, not because I destroyed them, but because I finally saw myself clearly. And that made all the difference.